Bail reform is also a hot topic in Ontario, where senior police officials are calling on the province to reform its bail system, particularly for people accused of violent offences. Meetings on the topic continue today with the Justice Committee at the provincial legislature. Our CBC Megan Fitzpatrick is there following the proceedings.
The criminal code, the bail system, does fall under federal jurisdiction, but this has been a topic of interest here in Ontario. That's partly in reaction to the recent death of an Ontario provincial police officer in December who was killed in the line of duty. One of those accused in that case was out on bail at the time. That, in part, is behind Premier Doug Ford's call on the federal government to reform bail laws in this country. He and other premiers recently wrote a letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau urging changes. Toronto's police chief also wrote a letter to the Prime Minister with some suggestions and recommendations. Chief Demke was among those who testified here at the Ontario Legislature this week before the Justice Committee, which is doing a study on bail reform in Canada. Several police organizations have shared their views over the last few days. Toronto's police chief, for example, calling for bail hearings for serious firearms offences to be conducted only by judges, not by justices of the peace, saying far too often those accused of some firearm offences are already out on bail, already accused of other firearms offences. So some of these police organizations calling for reforms. That's what we heard again today from Premier Doug Ford, who had this to say about bail reform.
We need to put the bad folks away in jail and not let them back on the streets so easily. It's some of the cases have showed me are staggering how they get out on bail. So we need to do a better job. And anyone caught with a gun in a heinous crime, they should be going away for a long time.
But today's hearing has also featured some opposing views from some organizations like the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, the John Howard Association, as well as the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, some expressing concerns about making Canada's bail system even stricter. Some of the witnesses saying it's not a lenient system and that there already are mechanisms in place in the justice system to keep some people in pretrial custody who have been deemed a risk to public safety. They were saying it would be very costly to keep even more people in prisons as they await their trials, and that there's also major social costs to doing that as well. Here's a little bit from a representative of the CCLA.
What you heard from criminal defense lawyers yesterday is that, in fact, when people are charged with firearms offenses, they have to put together a really good bail plan. And it is already the case that our courts take firearms offenses and firearms charges very seriously.
Some of the witnesses expressed concerns about what the impact of stricter bail laws in Canada, the impact that would have on some groups who are already disadvantaged in the justice system. They were pointing out, for example, that Black and Indigenous Canadians are already overrepresented in the justice system. Some marginalized groups could even be further disadvantaged if the bail system was reformed, depending on what those changes are. Some were agreeing that, yes, there can be a review that might be justified to look at how to change the bail system, but any changes should be done very carefully. They were expressing concerns about the protection of people's legal rights and principles of the justice system, like the presumption of innocence being protected. And so they're saying any changes need to be based on evidence and need to be done very carefully. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Toronto.